I want to look at a little breadbasket full of chord progressions. I call this the chord progression toolbox. They're familiar little patterns, some of them just a few chords long, some of them are little vamps of repeating two-bar phrases, but they're little harmonic progressions that you'll probably recognize from different songs, and they're based on the principles we've looked at throughout the past videos, and you're free to use these as a jumping-off point for your own compositions. They're all standard public domain fair game. So I sped up the tempo a bit so we can get through a lot of them. And again, this is just a little library of chord progressions to call upon when you're struggling or looking for some inspiration to either harmonize a melody or to get started. And they're all in the key of C for now. So here we go. The first one is 1-4-1-5 repeated. And I tried to vary the voicings here a bit just to give you a sense of variety and some different possibilities for voicing them. Here's the next example, and this is a very common chord pattern. It's used a lot. You're going to recognize it from James Blunt's You're Beautiful and from Alicia Keys' No One and many other tunes. Of course, those tunes that I mentioned were at a slower tempo, but it's the same chord progression, 1-5-6-4. And you can get some nice variety out of this by starting it in different places. You don't have to start on the tonic. You can start on the A minor. You can go A minor, F, C, G, A minor, F, C, G, and that'll give you a whole different flavor. Let's go on to the next one. And this is a real standard doo-wop kind of chord progression. Of course, this is a faster tempo, but some of the old 12/8 pop tunes from the 50s and 60s featured this typical 1-6-4-5 kind of chord progression. It might sound more familiar in a 12/8 kind of feel, something like this. So that's the same pattern. Let's go to the next one. And this is 1-flat-7-flat-6-5, and 1 being minor. So we're in A minor here. A minor to G to F to E7. And this is a typical kind of hit the road jack type of progression. And you'll notice that the F is a tritone substitute for a B. So if this was B to E7, that would be a 2-5 to A minor. So 2-5 being very strong root movement, the tritone substitute leads to that chromatic movement, which also gives strong movement. Let's go to the next example here. And this is part of what I call kesh, contrapuntal embellishment of static harmonies. We're going to do a little bit more elaborate version of it a bit later on. But this is a basic way to make movement or establish movement when you're really sitting on one chord. We have C minor, and we're just hovering on C minor, but we're doing some voice leading to give it movement, raising the fifth up to a sharp fifth, then up to a sixth, and then back down to a sharp fifth. And this is the kind of James Bond kind of vibe that you're going to hear. So, contrapuntal embellishment of static harmonies. Let's go on to the next variation here. And this is a rock kind of progression where we're going 1 to flat 3 and then 4-5. And you can also use flat 7 here instead, but 1 flat 3 4 5, 1 flat 3 4 5. Again, you'll probably recognize it from the standard lexicon of pop chord progressions. Now we're going to get into some extensions, and this really adds some nice depth to the chords. We're having a C triad here with an add 9, and this isn't the same as a C major 9 because the C major 9 has the 7th in it as well, the B natural. But this is more of a C triad with the 9th added. And then we're going up to a C major 7 with the 3rd in the bass, to the 4 chord, and then to the 5 chord, but with a sus. So we're getting a nice bass movement here of C to E to F to G, but with these extensions, it really adds a nice flavor. So we add the 9, then the major 7 with the 3rd, the F major 7, and then the G sus is kind of like an F triad over a G bass. Let's listen. So I could also spell this out as F over G, different way of saying the same thing. Let's move on to the next example, and this is a standard bridge type of chord progression. Now, we haven't really spoken about bridges yet, and they mean different things in different styles of music, but in jazz lexicon, in the jazz standards, we often had an A section and a B section. Typical forms might be A, B, A, and this is not really verse-chorus type of lingo. This is more pertaining to jazz tunes. And if we have a jazz tune that's in C, where the A section is hovering around C, the B section, the bridge, usually goes somewhere else and then leads back to the home base at the end of the bridge when we get to A section coming back. So this is a standard bridge chord progression. It's used on a lot of standards like Satin Doll and Undecided and many other ones. But in the key of C, it starts off with a 1 dominant going to the 4 chord, and then 2 dominant for 2 bars, and then 5 dominant for 2 bars. So this is a secondary dominant. So in the key of C, this would be a standard bridge. And there's lots of variations of this. We could go A minor 7, D7 here instead of 2 bars of D7, and that's just putting the 2 chord before the 5 in the secondary dominant cycle. We could go A minor 7, D7, and then D minor 7, G7. That's one of many variations. We can also put the 2 chord here and go G minor 7 for a bar to C7, then to F. Now, of course, this isn't restricted to jazz tunes. You can use this type of chord progression anywhere in any style, but that's the standard usage of it. I'm going to end this video here, and we're going to pick up in the next one and continue with some more chord progression toolbox standard chord progressions.